Hello and welcome to the ultimate exploration guide for Don't Starve Together. Whether you're a complete beginner, have 20 hours, 100 hours, 1000 hours on the game, this guide is gonna tell you everything you need to know about exploration. Do you want to know how to find the Pig King? What about the Lunar Island, the Dragonfly Desert, Toadstool, the ruins? Anything you can think of I will cover if it's important to your survival. Also, I lied in my guide since Toadstool can apparently spawn in the Labyrinth. Before we start, I have a quick disclaimer. The information provided in this guide comes from my experience of the game, having played over 1000 hours and the 100 worlds I generated and spent many hours analyzing for this video. I have not looked at any code. If you take interest in knowing more, details will be in the description, as well as the raw footage, spreadsheet and notes I made if you want to verify anything said in the video. All the generated worlds were made with default settings during the Year of the Dragonfly update with events disabled. Since KLEI has updated the game further, I will of course cover all the new stuff as well. I also tested the information I'm about to provide by rushing the ruins, Toadstool's cap, and the Eye of Terror 5 times each. I will definitely include those runs and some personal suggestions I have to KLEI Entertainment to make the game better, so this video isn't just an unbearable overload of information. If you're a KLEI developer, listen extra carefully to the chapter about random biomes. With that out of the way, let's start exploring. Let's start with some basics that I didn't even know of until I analyzed the worlds. Every single default-sized world will contain 15 mainland biomes, each one without fail. 10 of those will always be the same in every single world, but the rest will be picked at random from a pool of 10 other biomes. In other words, there are 20 different mainland biomes and you will have 15 of them. A DST world will, in addition to the mainland, also contain an ocean with completely separate biomes, as well as the caves that can be traveled to through cave entrances found around the world. When you spawn into the world is when this guide will apply to you the most. You're either looking to gather key items or food, find a good base spot, rush the ruins, or speedrun a boss. All of those goals require good exploration knowledge to pull off reliably, so if your aim is to do any of those things, this is the guide for you. Time is not your friend in DST, we're starving after all, so we ideally want to be able to accomplish these goals as fast as possible as well. A good place to start will be looking at the different biomes that you can expect to find and what you can expect to find within them, as well as of course how to predict where they are so you can find them fast. A biome consists of 4 main things. A main part of the biome, potential sub-biomes, potential set pieces or points of interest found within the biomes, and an assortment of resources based on the biome or sub-biome. In most cases, it will be clear where one biome ends and where the next one starts, since different biomes and sub-biomes feature different types of turfs that distinguish them. In some cases, however, different biomes share the same type of turf, making the line between them harder to make out. To your help or potentially dismay, a DST world features many rivers that extend from the ocean to this line. If you want to cross these, you should find a way around or use grass and twigs to build a grass raft that you can walk across. The rivers also make a DST world different in another special way. They create what is known as branches that extend from the biome you spawn into, and some biomes generally appear farther out on these branches than others. To determine this, I created a little system to define how far away a biome spawns. If any biome spawns adjacent to the biome with a spawn portal, it's considered to be close in that world. If it's connected to a close biome, it's a middle biome. If the biome is connected to one of these middle biomes and an outer biome, it is also considered a middle biome. And finally, if it's on the edge of a branch and 3 or more biomes away, or if it's 4 or more biomes away, it's considered an outer biome. It sounds complicated, but the thing you need to take away is that I don't measure actual distance and only the number of biomes away. The final piece of basic information you should know is that each time you generate a new DST world, 3 coins are flipped. These determine the basic resources your world will primarily contain. The first flip determines if your world will have saplings or twig trees as the primary source of twigs. The second flip will determine if the grass tufts in all grassland areas will be replaced by grass geckos in other biomes. And the final flip decides if you see normal or juicy berry bushes. By enabling the starting resource variety setting upon world generation, you can force the game to always flip the first mentioned sources. Now I say we're ready to dive deeper into the different biomes that you can find. The first biome you will find is the one you spawn into, a biome appropriately named the Starter Biome. This biome will, by definition, always be closed, since it contains the spawn portal, also known as the Floored Postern. The Floored Postern is therefore what we call a guaranteed set piece of the Starter Biome. The Starter Biome is also the surface biome with the highest number of attachments to other biomes. Over the 100 worlds I generated, it had a total of 346 attachments, which is roughly 3.5 per world. This makes it the single best biome to explore if you want to find other biomes, and the number of attachments will therefore, going forth, be a number describing the likelihood of you finding another biome behind that biome. The higher the number, the more likely. The Starter Biome's main biome is a grassland area denoted by the light green grass turf. In this area, you will find an abundance of sapling/twig trees, normal/juicy berry bushes, and grass tufts if your world doesn't have any grass geckos. Therefore, you can immediately know what the game flipped in terms of basic resources right as you spawn in. If your grassland doesn't have any grass tufts, then your world will have grass geckos, and if it does have grass tufts, you know that there won't be any geckos anywhere. In addition to these, you can also find evergreens, birchnut trees, carrots to pick and eat, flowers that spawn butterflies during daytime, flint to make tools, and the occasional pond, rabbit hole, mole burrow, or beehive in the grasslands in terms of resources. The grasslands are therefore the best area to gather starting resources, except for the fact that they don't contain any rocks or gold. Before we move on to the next biome where you can find that in abundance, however, let's discuss the Sub Biomes and potential points of interest you can expect in the Starter Biome. The Starter Biome contains 2 guaranteed Sub Biomes. All Sub Biomes are guaranteed, but I felt like I should point that out, with the first one being a false forest, like I call it. Why do I do that then? Well, it has forest turf and it's not a main forest biome. It also barely has any trees at all, so to call it a forest is pretty much laughable. It will contain the occasional sapling, pig house, flower or beehive, however, but generally exploring false forests isn't worth your time at all if it's resources you're looking for. The second sub-biome is a small savanna. In one of these you can find grass tufts even if your world has grass geckos, rabbits and the occasional nitro boulder. In the Starter Biome, there are also chances for certain points of interest. Firstly, there is a big 84% chance that the biome, sub or main, contains a single cave entrance. A cave entrance is gonna serve as your entry ticket into the cave shard that we will dive deeper into later in the video. Know that there is an average of 9.73 cave entrances in a world, ranging from 8 to 10. There is a whopping 83% chance that your world will have the standard 10 entrances. Secondly, you have a solid 63% chance to find a wormhole here. Wormholes are very useful tools in exploration, since they can effectively teleport you to another wormhole somewhere on the map. Your world will almost always have 4 pairs of wormholes. Only 2 out of the 100 worlds had 3 pairs. Note that a single biome can only ever feature 1 cave and/or wormhole. Another very common point of interest, 94%, is a moose goose nesting ground, or a nest. Nests are easily noticeable with their pond, 3 carrots, 5 or 3 berry bushes, and a few trees. Not to mention the sticks on the ground that make out the actual nest. Other than the resources, a moose goose will spawn and lay an egg at half of the world's nests, rounded up later in spring. The amount of nests in a world varies between 6 and 12, depending on RNG and the random biomes your world has. Next up is the more rare touchstone at 25% likelihood. Only 2 of these spawn in every shard in 99% of cases, and here you can revive yourself or smash the pig heads for the pigskin and twigs. Finally, the 100 starter biomes I looked at contain a total of 52 marble pieces. We'll get to know more about these later on. We're finally moving on to the next guaranteed biome, the Mosaic Biome. This biome will in 99% of cases be a close biome. This makes it the most ideal biome to look for at the very start if you want to find flint, rocks and gold, since those are plentiful here. The main biome, as the name suggests, contains a mixture of all sorts of turfs. The patterns contain the rockiest turfs closest to the small inland lakes here, and from there they gradually change into forest turf. The outer parts of the biome will therefore look like a false forest at first glance, so note that you may have found the Mosaic Biome if you see a false forest next to the starter biome, and especially if there's a road going into it. In terms of sub-biomes, the Mosaic Biome contains two: a meteor field and a graveyard. Meteor fields are easily identifiable since they don't contain any turf, there are a lot of rocks around, and there are black marks on the ground after meteor showers have occurred. Because of the frequent meteor showers that occur here, I suggest that you keep your base very clear of any meteor fields, since the meteors destroy any items and structures they hit. Unfortunately, the meteors also fall a surprisingly long distance away from the actual meteor fields, so keep that in mind. The final exhibit in the meteor fields are tall bird nests, of which you will have an average of 3.67 per field. The nests don't get destroyed by the meteors, and they're a reliable source of big meat for a hambat in the early game if you're comfortable kiting tall birds. If your world has geckos, you can also find some of them here if they haven't been killed by the tall birds first. The graveyard is the other sub-biome, and it's exclusive to the Mosaic Biome. Here you can find gold nuggets on the ground, plenty of graves to dig up, and a graveyard mist. There's not much more to the graveyards, but you can get gold here early without having to mine anything. The Mosaic Biome also has one guaranteed set piece called the Rock Den. If you have a gecko world, you should definitely look for this place, since there will be around 20 geckos here then. The Rock Den itself isn't that useful though, since it only allows you to adopt critters. Now we move on to the next biome. Another biome that usually spawns relatively close to the starter biome is the Beefalo Savannah. As the name suggests, the main biome here is a savanna, like the sub-biome we had in the starter biome. The savanna will always contain a lot of grass tufts, so with that alone it can be worth exploring while gathering multiple stacks of cut grass. Like the small savanna, this one also contains a lot of rabbits and a few nitro boulders to mine. The big savannas will also contain a small number of spider nests. This biome also has two sub-biomes, with the first one being a false forest, exactly like the one in the starter biome, but with a second and far more interesting Beefalo biome as the second sub-biome. The Beefalo biome varies in size, and it can be hard to distinguish it from the main biome, since they both have savanna turf. The Beefalo biome, however, does not contain anywhere near the same amount of grass tufts, rabbits and boulders. Instead, it is home to a very random amount of beefalo. Two noteworthy things are that 1. The Beefalo Savannah is the third best guaranteed biome to explore if you want to find other biomes behind it. And 2. The Beefalo Savannah has the highest spawn rate of marble pieces in the game, with the only close competitor being the starter biome. Next up are the two guaranteed Evergreen Forests, the Mandrake and Moonstone Forest. They both have the same main biome, but differ in terms of sub-biomes and set pieces. The main biome in question is the Evergreen Forest. It contains forest turf just like the False Forest, but the Evergreen Forest is way more abundant in resources. The trees are more densely packed, there are many spider nests, pig houses and saplings, as well as a few grass tufts, molehills, graves and ponds. Because of the abundance of resources here, these forests can be a good thing to explore, especially to hammer the pig houses and harvest spider silk, even though they have a relatively low number of attachments. That was the similarities, but now on to the differences, since these are two different biomes we're talking about here. Firstly, the Mandrake Forest is usually found in the middle of the map, but can really show up anywhere, while the Moonstone Forest is more often than not an outer biome. They also differ heavily in sub-biomes and set pieces they contain. The Mandrake Forest has two sub-biomes, one grassland and oddly enough also a Beefalo sub-biome. The grassland in the Mandrake Forest is a little bit special, however, since it spawns with 2 to 4 mandrakes in it. The mandrake's primary use case is to craft pan flutes, so I don't usually care about them, but I can see why they're important to the majority of the players. The Moonstone Forest, on the other hand, only contains one sub-biome, and this one is also a grassland. This grassland is also special since it contains a singular walrus camp. This walrus camp is the only one you get guaranteed in the world, so I definitely recommend finding it before winter, when you can hunt the MacTusk for his tusk and tan. Now for the set pieces, and we start with a totally normal tree or living tree. These set pieces are not guaranteed to spawn in your world, but there is less than a 10% chance for that to happen, so don't get scared off yet. The Mandrake Forest will contain an average of 1.19 living trees, ranging from 0 to a maximum of 3, with a 21% chance of having 0. The Moonstone Forest, however, can only contain a maximum of 1 tree with a 50% chance. There are a lot of numbers here, but to simplify, the best shot you have at finding living trees is in the Mandrake Forest, since 80% is more than 50%, and you can also find multiple living trees in the Mandrake Forest. Worth mentioning is that there is a third biome that also might contain living trees, but that one is not a guaranteed biome, so we'll get to it later. The only other exclusive set piece in these biomes is the Moonstone, where you perform the Moonstone event. And I don't have to tell you in which forest that one spawns in, but note that it will spawn more towards the center of the biome rather than the edges. Finally, the Mandrake Forest cannot ever contain touchstones. You learn something every day about this game. The next biome is also a forest, but this time a birchnut forest rather than an evergreen forest. I'm of course talking about the King Biome, that usually spawns as a middle biome. The main biome of the King Biome is a deciduous forest, with the iconic orange deciduous turf, that cannot be found outside this type of main biome. As you can tell, the main exhibit here are the birchnut trees in absolute abundance, and this is the best place to find that type of tree. Other than them, you can find plenty of mushrooms, catcoon stumps, and fireflies at night. Be careful around catcoons, since they can eat your papyrus, and that definitely hasn't happened to me on one occasion. The deciduous forest doesn't really offer much else though, in terms of resources. You can only find very sparse amounts of pig houses, saplings, grass tops, molehills, and gold boulders, which might sound like a lot, but like I said, very sparse and unreliable. Therefore, I urge you not to waste your time exploring this biome, other than following the roads. There will namely always be a road in the King Forest that leads you to, you guessed it, the Pig King. This pig village, where the King sits, is the only sub-biome to be found here, and in it you can find plenty of pig houses, a plantation of some kind usually, and of course the Pig King himself, where you can trade non-monster meat and trinkets for gold. Before we leave, there is also one final set piece I would like to discuss, the Glommer statue. This set piece always spawns close to Pig King, so you'll find it if you find him. And here you'll always find a free 100% pamphlet, Glommer during a full moon, and plenty of berry bushes, molehills, mushrooms, and flowers. This mole haven, as I took to call it, seemingly varies in size to the point that it took up a whole peninsula in one world. This confused me and almost made me want to categorize it as a sub-biome, but I found it more appropriate as a set piece. That's it for now about the King Forest. We're moving on to the Queen Biome next. This is a middle biome and the biome with the second most attachments out of any surface biome, second only to the starter biome. This means that the Queen Biome, more often than not, is worth exploring to find other biomes you might be looking for. What doesn't help is, however, that the main biome is only a simple grassland like the ones we've covered so far, and one of the two sub-biomes is a false forest. For those reasons, I would suggest that you stick to the roads for this one to more quickly find out if any biomes hide behind it. If you're interested in bees specifically, however, there is another sub-biome here in the bee fields. The only thing here is beehives and flowers on grassland turf though. The only noteworthy set piece here is the biome's main feature, the Bee Queen hive. If you hammer it when there is no visible honey left, you will spawn the raid boss known as Bee Queen. So unless you're planning to fight her, I suggest that you hammer the free honey and then leave. The set piece also includes an average of 1.46 killer beehives, ranging from 1 to 2, and a lot of flowers. A final note is that the Queen Biome has the highest chance of any surface biome to contain a touchstone at 30%. If the Queen Biome was boring and plain, the Dragonfly Desert is very exotic in comparison. The biome is hard to find since it's an outer biome and the guaranteed biome with the least amount of attachments, but the main biome is a desert. In Don't Starve, the Dragonfly Desert is arguably the best place to gather basic resources in the game. You have both the tumbleweeds that give heaps of grass, twigs and random useful stuff, but also many rocks and even gold and nitro boulders in one part. With that being said, the part I'm speaking of is a Hound Mound sub-biome. biome, where there are an average of 4.53 hound mounds guarding the minerals. The range of hound mound inclusion is massive, however. I found anything between 0 and 17 hound mounds to clear out. In the main desert, you can also find spiky bushes for twigs and very useful cacti, whose flesh restore 15 sanity apiece when cooked. Both of these deal 3 damage each time you pick them though. Other than the hound mound one, the only other sub biome is a small savanna like the one in the starter biome. You can also find geckos here in a gecko world. Let's address the elephant in the room, however, the Dragonfly Set Piece, housing 6 hot magma pools, numerous burnt skeletons, spiky bushes, trees and scratch marks, and obviously the Dragonfly raid boss. Unlike the Bee Queen, the Dragonfly roams freely without player intervention, so beware of straying too close in your exploration. I have 2 final notes for this biome. Firstly, it isn't supposed to be possible for caves to spawn in the Dragonfly Desert. The only time that happened was when the Dragonfly set piece spawned at the very edge of the biome, to the point that it extended into another biome. It just so happened that the cave spawned at the edge of that biome, and it appeared as though the cave had spawned in the desert. Just don't go looking for caves in the desert. Secondly, there will also be a group of buzzard spawners in the Dragonfly Desert. Making this video really opened my eyes to how good this can be to gather meat at. Just lure down the buzzards with some of your meat and kill them for drumsticks, morsels and jet feathers. Just look at the results and form your own opinion on how good they are. And so we leave the Dragonfly Desert only to find ourselves in another desert. The Oasis Desert. As far as I could tell, both of the deserts follow roughly the same spawn pattern, only that the Oasis Desert has a few more attachments than the Dragonfly Desert, for reasons I will mention later. There are, however, a lot of differences between these 2 deserts, even more than between the Evergreen Forests. For starters, the Oasis doesn't feature any sub-biomes, and the cacti look different, although they taste the same. Think of them like tortilla and nacho chips. The most obvious difference is the Oasis set piece though. In summer, you can fish in it for fish, trinkets and blueprints. Another summer feature is a sandstorm that takes over the entire biome apart from the oasis itself. When the sandstorms are going, so not during the rain, you can also find the antlion seasonal boss here at the antlion spawner. The spawner can be identified even before summer by looking at the turf patches on the ground. If you take note of it early, you won't have to scramble around the sandstorm looking for it. This all sounds great, but we haven't even discussed the main reason you come here in my opinion. The Vault Goats. Upon generating a world, the game will decide how many herds of these goats to spawn. I've always gotten between 1 and 2, but I've heard people say you can get up to 4, which sounds crazy to me. Unfortunately, I didn't take note of this, but you can expect 1 to 2 herds. If you want to know more about Vault Goats, I suggest you watch my previous uploads, since many of them highlight the importance of these goats. In terms of points of interest, the Oasis Desert is really sparse. You won't find any wormholes, caves, nests, touchstones or even roads here. For me, this makes the Oasis a no-go for basing, but many people value the protection from summer wildfires that the sandstorms provide enough for them to always base here anyways. Base is a future topic, however, so let's move on to the final guaranteed biome. The word yucky summarizes the swamp biome pretty well in this game. This biome can spawn pretty much everywhere and has no sub-biomes to speak of. The swamp is the most dangerous surface biome if you ask me. There are many annoying spiders, ambushing tentacles, territorial worms and exploding mosquitoes. And they all hate each other and they all hate you. That is why I advise always being on the move when exploring this biome. Don't stand still is the name of the game here, since a tentacle can pop up any second and slap you silly. Running past the mosquitoes makes them unable to hit you, staying off the spider webs is always advised, and worms only get mad if you get close to their homes, so don't do that. With the dangerous stuff out of the way, let's discuss assets, and those can be summarized as just reeds. The swamp used to be the only place you could get reeds reliably, but now the KLEI has added monkey tails, lunar beaches, and so many things to erase at the cartography table, you only really need to pick reeds here once ever. And now set pieces like the reed trap aren't really as cool anymore. We'll get to those later. Like I mentioned, the swamp doesn't contain any sub-biomes, but it has one set piece at least. This is the pig heads on sticks set piece, and it doesn't get more interesting than that. You can find it at the edge of the road. With that said, I have now come to the point where I finally need to mention mention Chester and the stagehand. Chester, or the eye bone, is another point of interest that can spawn close to or in a biome next to the stagehand. I'll let you explore the stagehand on your own, but know that Chester's eye bone can only spawn in 4 different biomes. 3 of those are random biomes, and the final one is the swamp, where Chester is guaranteed to spawn if none of those 3 biomes exist in the world. If this has happened, you can tell since the cobblestone road will spawn in the swamp without leaving the swamp. This means that if Chester spawns in the swamp, you won't have any of the 3 biomes coming up next. But if you see a cobblestone road outside of the swamp, then at least one of those biomes does exist, and Chester is most likely in one of those biomes that the cobblestone road leads through, if he's not in another one of those biomes, that is. Like I mentioned, the stagehand is a set piece that Chester spawns close to, but the stagehand can't spawn in the swamp specifically. This means that if you see the stagehand in any biome that isn't the upcoming 3, then those biomes don't exist, and Chester is in the swamp that is also close by. If the stagehand is in one of those 3 biomes, then Chester will also be there. Let's now look at some random biomes, starting with the 3 biomes where Chester can spawn. Starting with a biome I bet you don't even know exists, or thought at least was part of the starter biome. A biome that also happens to be my 3rd least favorite. Yes, I'm gonna rank them, so beware opinions. The Molehill Biome. When you value these biomes, you have to think about opportunity cost. If I have this Molehill whatever biome, then I miss out on another biome that is way better. Since the Molehill is yet another biome whose main biome is just a normal grassland, I don't like it. And what doesn't help it is that all 3 of the sub biomes in it are also grassland. The first sub biome is the actual Molehill. The only thing here is a bunch of moleworm burrows, and Chester will 100% always spawn here if this place exists. Next is a pond biome. Like the name suggests, it contains a whole bunch of ponds that spawn frogs. If you're good enough or stupid enough, you probably hit one of these frogs so that they all aggroed on you. Feel free to farm them at your own risk. Otherwise, there's nothing of note here. The final sub-biome is just another bee field one, like the one in the Bee Queen biome. I don't know about you, but to me, this biome is super bland and uninteresting, so I frankly don't like to see it in my worlds. Since it has so many attachments, I'm always forced to go through it a lot, and it's usually long and stretched out, not to mention unnecessary. 3 out of 10, bad. It doesn't really get better now either, since we're looking at a very similar, and in some ways even worse, ponds biome. This biome doesn't start off strong, since the main biome is a flippin' false forest. As we've established before, false forests are basically worthless. Then why is the ponds biome better then? Surely it must have awesome sub-biomes. Nope, it only has 1. And big surprise, it's the same pond biome we just went over. No. What makes this one better in my opinion is the lack of worthless extra sub-biomes that make the biome bigger. The smaller the biome, the faster it is to explore, and I don't have to run as far as I'll have to with a Molehill biome. It also has fewer attachments, so there's even less of a chance that I have to run through it all. Not really much more to say about this biome, other than Chester can spawn here, and that it exists sometimes close to the star biome. 4 out of 10, below average. Shall we explore something good for a change? The Pig Village Forest? This one is not to be confused with the Pig King Forest, since this one is random, doesn't include Pig King, and the main biome is an Evergreen Forest rather than a Deciduous Forest. It's generally a close biome like the previous 2 and has 2 sub-biomes. First one is a Pig Village sub-biome. In here you'll find multiple pig houses, plants and plantations. If you're super lucky, you even get the rare 8 pig houses right next to each other set piece. The other sub-biome in the Pig Forest is a small swamp. Just like we've had small savannas before, we have a small swamp here. This one is better even, since it doesn't include spiders or worms, and it's also here you'll find Chester if he's in the biome. Set pieces are also interesting for this one. I mentioned earlier that there was another biome that also had potential for living trees, and this is the one I was talking about. Out of the 54 times that this biome was generated, it included 44 living trees ranging from 0 to 2. Although I didn't write it down sadly, I can tell you that at least one of the times both the other 2 Evergreen Forests didn't include one, this one did. You're also more likely to find a living tree here than in the Moonstone Forest if you find this biome. The most living trees I've ever found in a single world was 5, which is crazy. Another set piece that is guaranteed to spawn in the Pig Forest is the Terrarium chest, that I will go over later, since I will showcase the Eye of Terror speedruns I did to validate the tips I'm about to drop in this video. Like this one. If you have the Pig Forest, there will, 98 times out of 100, be a cobblestone road that links the Pig Village in the Pig Village Forest with the Pig King. I repeat, if you have a pig village forest, the cobblestone road will lead to the Pig King 98% of the time. Better yet, this road can run through multiple biomes, meaning you can tell if you have a pig forest and how to get to the Pig King immediately when you spawn in if the road heads through the Star Biome with suspicious direction. With these tips, I can find out so many things about my world in just 1 second. I know whether I have geckos or tufts, saplings or trees, juicy or normal berry bushes, pig forests or likely not, where I go to find Pig King, and thus if Chester isn't in the swamp, and even that I find the Mosaic Biome just by running around the edge of the Starter Biome. I just see a third of the world in the first second. For all these reasons, the Pig Village Forest gets awarded my Seal of Excellence, 9 out of 10. Back to the bad biomes we go with the Meteor Biome. Already by the name you can tell this one is bad to roll. Unlike the previous 3 biomes, this one isn't often close but generally outer. We're also done with all the biomes that can contain Chester. The first thing that makes this one bad is the fact that the main biome is yet another boring grassland. The second and worst thing is the fact that the only 2 sub-biomes are a bee field and a meteor field. With the Mosaic Biome being so close to the center and thus far away from interesting biomes, it wasn't too bad. The Meteor Biome can spawn anywhere though, and it can completely ruin your otherwise perfect base spot. Second to least favorite biome, get it out of my world, I don't want to see it again, 2 out of 10, terrible. You know that I just said second least favorite, so what could possibly make a biome even worse than taking away base spots? What about a biome that takes your time, hope, excitement and biome slots while contributing absolutely nothing in terms of points of interest or resources? You guessed it, it's a second deciduous forest that doesn't have Pig King or Glamour. It has 0 sub-biomes and the second most sparse main biome. On top of that, it can't spawn any wormholes, caves, touchstones or nests in it, so I don't even have a reason to explore it, right? Then it's fine, right? Except no, there can still spawn biomes behind it, and like with any other biome, there can still spawn marble pieces within it as well that were gonna spawn elsewhere anyways. And worst of all, claws can spawn here. Claws is a boss in this game that has the most desirable loot table of any boss. He spawns at randomly determined points that get placed during the world generation in either the Mosaic Biome or a deciduous forest. You see where the problem lies, right? Claws would spawn anyways, and because this biome spawned, I now had to search 3 biomes instead of 2. This biome is the definition of filler content. Its only redeeming quality is that the ground is pretty, but I have to be practical here, so it gets a 1 out of 10 in salty. Let's look at a biome that does what the second deciduous forest tries to do, but actually manages to do it well. The Rockylands biome. In other words, the Rockylands are worthless to explore in a good way. What I mean by that is that the Rockylands have the lowest attachment rate out of any surface biome, and that you know exactly what you're gonna find there. There were only 2 times that the Rockylands were attached to another biome, and that was wonky corner-to-corner world generation's fault. You will never find a biome behind this one. Also, the only thing that is in the Rockylands are nitro boulders, gold boulders, buzzard spawners and potentially geckos. Other than the marble set pieces, observe, not pieces, nothing interesting spawns in this biome that you need to explore it to find. Safe to say, I'm happy when I get this one, not just for the many rocks, but also for the fact that I can walk by without missing anything. 7 out of 10, good. What is better than a biome that you don't need to explore? Well, a biome that you can explore in 10 seconds, of course. The smallest biome in Don't Starve Together is the Quadra Moose Goose biome, that I'm just gonna call the Nest Biome from now on. This biome can spawn anywhere that is relatively close to spawn. It can even spawn inside other biomes, since it's so small, but it still takes up a biome slot. I ask you what is best, wasting a whole minute walking through the giant Molehill Biome, or walking 5 seconds through the Nest Biome. Like, the Nest Biome even has a reason to walk to it in the form of 4 moose goose nesting grounds that spawn here 100% of the time. Unlike the normal nests, these ones don't have the plant resources unfortunately, but that doesn't matter if you want to farm goose feathers, which becomes way easier. On the surface, the nest biome seems like a tiny worthless grassland with nothing in it, but in reality, your world is blessed. 8 out of 10, great. If the nest biome makes your world blessed, then this next biome can only really be described as bullet hell. It's a killer bee biome. It gets its name from the craziest sub-biome in the game, the killer bee field. In this sub-biome, you'll find grass tufts, flowers, and beehives aplenty. But its main feature are the dozens of killer beehives that litter it. The biome's spawn behavior makes it so that you're forced to run through this part of the biome, since the main normal grassland part of the biome is always behind it if you come from the direction of the floor it possible. Lobster. There are 3 easy ways to get past it safely though. The first way is to get lucky with a wormhole that spawns behind. Secondly, you can just use a boat, but the third and laughably easiest strategy that I suggest is to just run and not stop. The killer bees have such a tiny attack range that you can literally be invincible if you just don't stop. The only problem you might have is if one of the marble pieces spawn here. Then you have to clear away the bees or find a really good opening to pick it up. I mentioned the main grassland and the killer bee fields, but this biome also has 2 other sub-biomes, a false forest and a normal bee field like the Queen Biome one. The abundance of bee resources bumped this biome up quite a bit for me, but what drags it down is its spawning habits. It's really hard to find compared to other biomes, since the only way to find it is with a wormhole or by stumbling across the tiny land bridge that doesn't have any roads leading to it. Worse yet is the fact that other useful biomes that are outer biomes more than 50% of the time, like the deserts or the moonstone forest for example, have a chance to spawn behind the killer bee biome. This both makes them way harder to find and makes the world way bigger, which increases travel times. This is especially bad if the Oasis Desert spawns behind. That biome can't contain wormholes, and if you want to relocate the vault codes, you're in for pain. The fact that you can just lead deer clops here for tons of bee loot gives this biome a generous 5 out of 10. Average score though. The killer bee biome may have made the Oasis Desert harder to find, but the opposite is true for the next biome on the list, the Quarry. With the lowest occurrence rate out of any random biome, at 42%, I'm pretty sure that the spider quarry is always supposed to spawn next to the Oasis Desert. Since this only happens 6 out of 7 times, and since I haven't looked at any code, I can't say that this is 100% the case. But since 6 out of 7 times is a lot, I can say that this is very likely, and that you can assume that you're gonna find the Oasis Desert next to it. This makes the Oasis Desert almost twice as easy to find in Quarry worlds, because now you have 2 biomes you can look for. On top of that, the Quarry allows wormholes to spawn 2/3 of the time, which was a power the Oasis lacked before. For this reason, the Quarry gets some bonus points from me. Unfortunately, it's not just a quarry, but a spider quarry. Spiders are my least favorite enemy in the game. They're super annoying, loud, and in this biome, there are hundreds of them. The spider quarry sub-biome has rocky turf, spawns like the killer bee fields right where you enter the biome. There are gold nuggets on the ground, like in the Mosaic graveyard, but there are many high-tier spider nests around guarding them. Clearing this place out with a giant is definitely nice though. The other parts of this biome include the main Rockylands, which is nice for more rocks, and a lumpy Evergreen Forest sub-biome that is unique to this biome. It is very similar to the false forest, but this one just has a lot more lumpy evergreens. On paper, this biome should be better than the OG Rockylands biome, but the fact that I don't have to explore that one, and the fact that I hate spiders so much, places this one just below at 6 out of 10 above average. This is it, the final random biome, and I've saved the best one for last. It's the Triple Mactusk biome, or Triple Mac for short. It's generally an outer biome, with the main biome being a savanna, which is great for picking grass. It has 3 sub-biomes and is usually therefore pretty large. It has a boring false forest, a small grassland, and a small Rockyland sub-biome. This Rockylands differs a bit from the usual main Rockylands we see in the Quarry and, well, the Rockylands biome, since this one has replaced the buzzard spawners with tallbird nests. That's fine and all, but why is this the best biome exactly? Well, that would be because of the 3 guaranteed walrus camps that spawn here. Without this biome, your world would only have a single walrus camp in the grassland patch within the moonstone forest. Since the tusk that used to craft the extremely precious walking cane item only has a 50% drop rate, you can absolutely get screwed over by RNG and not get a single one after having farmed walruses the whole winter. Don't even get me started on how much worse that becomes if you need tusks for a whole group of people, or god forbid for other things like Wanda's backtrick watches. The sheer difference that 4 compared to 1 of these camps makes is insane, and the fact that this biome comes down to RNG pisses me off enough that I use a mod to guarantee that this biome spawns in every world. You should know by now that I've been ranking the biomes based on how useful they are, and if you've really been paying attention, you know that there are 10 random biomes to rank, and that since this one gets a 10 out of 10, then every single one of those biomes has a different ranking. The crazy thing is that these rankings are not relative to each other. It just happened that they're all so unequally good that all of them got a different ranking. I know this is an exploration guide, but I'm speaking directly to KLEI right now since this is pretty relevant. Why have these biomes not seen an update since the launch of the game? Why are they so unequally good that I just want to restart my world if I see a second Deciduous or if I don't get a triple Mac? Can you please focus an update on the biomes that impact everyone who plays the game? You add the terrarium chest and the Rama stage message that I'm just about to talk about to the game, but for some reason you made them guaranteed to the 2 best biomes instead of showing some love to the terrible ones. I'm gonna give some suggestions here, so bear with me. Number 1. Make the triple mag guaranteed. Move the 4 goose nests to the second deciduous forest if you're gonna keep it. Give us an item to prevent meteors. Add something more interesting to the molehill. It could be as simple as having 3 cave entrances be guaranteed to spawn there. It fits the mole theme and would make a cool travel hub. The ponds biome could have something like an extra large pond similar to the Oasis where you could fish tumbleweed loot or something. You could even make it drop scrap to tie it into the new lunar narrative. Make the killer bee biome smaller and have a road leading up to some set piece with dead guys or something right in front of it so you can find it easier. Finally, you can hard code it so that the quarry always spawns right next to the Oasis, and so that no marble set pieces can spawn in the Rockylands. Point is that players shouldn't be punished for not getting a certain biome. They should be rewarded in different ways depending on the biomes. It only took me 10 minutes to brainstorm these ideas, and they would make the game so much better in my opinion, so please consider them, KLEI. Now you know most of what you need to know about the surface biomes in DST, but there is one thing left that is very important: set pieces. I said I was gonna talk about the terrarium chest and the drama stage, so let's start with the drama stage and we'll do the chest as a final one. The first thing you'll need to know is that survival-wise, the drama stage is completely useless. It just touches on lore and is a bit of fun. However, it can help you in your exploration. If the triple map exists, the stage will always spawn there. This means that if you find it elsewhere, you know that you don't have a triple mac, and that's unfortunate. The second biome in the priority list is the Molehill Biome, meaning that if you find it in a biome that's neither of these two, then both of them don't exist. After that, it seems to be completely random between a few other biomes. You can check the spreadsheet in the description if you want to know more. We've already gone over Chester. If you skipped over here and missed that part, just go back to this timestamp. Let's talk some more about nests. Like I've said before, your world can have between 6 and 13 nests depending on the biomes. There's basically a 100% chance that the Mandrake, Pig King, Bee Queen and Moonstone biomes all have nests. The only time this didn't happen was in a world where many of the biomes were squished, but that one had a quadruple nest biome anyway. The final guaranteed set piece we've yet to talk about is the terrarium chest. Wait, pause for a second. This is editing me speaking, and since scripting this video, KLEI has added another guaranteed set piece called the Junkyard. I have no data for this one in the spreadsheet, but I generated 20 worlds real quick, and 17 out of 20 times it spawned in the same biome as the terrarium chest, and the other 3 times it spawned in the Mandrake Forest. Those times the chest spawned in the Pig Village Forest, so other than that, what I'm about to say applies to the Junkyard as well. It can be found in any of the 3 Evergreen Forests, that being the Mandrake, Moonstone and Pig Village Forests. The Pig Village Forest is a random biome, like you know, and if it spawns, it will always contain the terrarium chest. If it doesn't, it will most likely spawn in the Mandrake Forest, and it only happened in 1 out of all the 100 worlds that it spawned in the Moonstone Forest. The chest will also have 1 of 3 different set pieces surrounding it, determined randomly. The most common one would be a ring of evil flowers with a burnt pig house that's set on fire when you open the chest. Next up is a tier 2 spider nest with a lumberjack boon, and the final one is 4 pig torches with berry bushes around. In this final one, it's harder to open the chest because the berry bushes block most of its hitbox, but if you do manage to open it, the pig guards will transform into were-pigs, giving you a small time frame to escape before they've transformed. If you don't know what a boon or a pig torch is, don't worry, since we'll get to those in a minute. Since I want to keep all the information in this guide as legit as possible, I decided to speedrun the Eye of Terror boss that you can spawn from the contents of the chest to see if the tricks I've learned through analyzing these worlds were any good or practical. In the first run, I went with Wigfrid for the free battle gear, and I found the chest immediately by just running down the roads. The chest also happened to contain 5 gold, so I could immediately craft an alchemy engine with the pig houses. Since this was the Pig Village Forest, I also knew how to find Pig King immediately to grab the pamphlet before overnight. Turns out I'm bad at pan-fluting, and that Wigfrid doesn't quite deal enough damage to finish the eye in a single night, so I had to wait another day. The next run, I picked Wolfgang instead to fix that problem, but that also means I need to gather more things and be really efficient in my exploration. The world was really weird, since the Moonstone Forest had glitched out and spawned on top of the Star Biome. This isn't supposed to happen, and it was the only time the Moonstone Forest spawned close, but I managed to keep myself cool enough to at least find the terrarium right as day 2 started. Thankfully, Wolfgang can kill the eye in a single night, but day 2 is not enough for me. The third run was a bit of a catastrophe, I'm ashamed to say. I had taken a break and my brain must have been turned off because I found the cobblestone road and I didn't use another piece of knowledge I had learned but not written down. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I found that if a biome spawns behind the Mosaic Biome, it is very likely to be the King Biome over any other biome. And I haven't seen the pig village forest generate behind it ever, I don't think. Had I just thought about that and gone right here instead of left, I would have maybe done it on day 1, but since the stupid eye decided to sit out on the water for multiple seconds, it took until day 3. Terrible. So the 4th and 5th runs were my shot at redemption. Both runs started great by finding the mosaic right away when I ran along the edges of the Star Biome. In run 4, I found the cobblestone path, but it didn't lead anywhere, which means that the terrarium had to be in the Mandrake Forest. When I found the Beefalo Sub Biome, I knew I was in the right forest, and so I ran along the edges until I found it. In run 5, I took a wormhole that led me to the pig village forest for free, but I didn't have enough basic resources yet, so I went back to get some before I explored the biome more. In both runs, I was almost screwed over by pigskin RNG, since I need big meat for a hambat, but with some very sweaty animation cancelling, I was able to close both the runs on day 1. That was my 4th and 5th run ever speedrunning the eye, and I beat it on day 1 both times. If that doesn't legitimize the tricks, perhaps the ruins rushes I'll do later on will. Okay, we have guaranteed set pieces, then surely there must be random set pieces as well. And sure there are, so let's go through them, starting with the reed trap. Ever since DST was released, this thing has been pretty hyped up, but frankly, I don't get it. With a surprisingly high chance of spawning at 10%, the reed trap can appear only in your main swamp biome. The only thing here are reeds with a whole bunch of tentacles guarding it. Like I said during the swamp sections, reeds aren't as premium anymore, so you don't really need this set piece anymore. Nowadays, when I walk by it, I just shrug it off, but if you like it, use a giant like Berger to clear it out. Another swamp exclusive random set piece that spawns 16% of the time is the rot trap. Somehow a chest which rots my food, if I'm unlucky, that contains random blueprints end up giving me more reeds than the reed trap in an average world. Huh. The other fan favorite set piece is the Developer Graveyard at an 8% occurrence rate. Unlike the reed trap, this one can spawn anywhere on the mainland, even in the caves, and it's also very useful. There is plenty of marble to mine here, there are 18 graves to dig up, a free shovel, but mostly importantly, the high concentration of graves make for an excellent farm opportunity that'll let you explore yourself. A nice touch is that the gravestones here have the names of the clay developers on them as well. They knew your world would be blessed to have this one. Let's keep going with the Queen's Gathering with a pitiful 4% occurrence. It only spawns on forest turf and contains 1 tier 1 spider nest and 11 tier 3 spider nests. As much as I hate spiders, I have to admit this is pretty cool, especially if you're Weber. A very similar set piece that I like much more though is the Living Forest set piece with a 6% occurrence, also on forest turf. This one I even found in false forests. Instead of 12 spider nests, this one contains 10 sleeping tree guards that aggro if you chop a tree. This is extremely good since you can kill all the tree guards for 60 living logs. 60! That is like finding 20 living trees in one place. Next up is the Beefalo pen that spawns with 30% occurrence on savanna turf with a higher spawn rate in the middle parts of the world. This one has a chest loot that has a chance to blow up and burn the whole place down, but once again it didn't happen for me, so I burned it down anyway to show what happens. Bring a luxury fan. With a 5% chance to spawn in the deserts, the next set piece is the 3-guard miner set piece. This one is perhaps even more useful than the living forest, since the 4 tree guards that spawn here are probably more than enough of what you might need living logs for. That is also because of the free miner hat boon that spawns here. Since the miner hat boon is one we're gonna talk about later that I found many times but never in desert, I have my theories that the tree guards for some weird reason are a bonus you get if that boon happens to spawn in the desert. I have no idea KLEI, so just count your wins. Next are the two famous brother set pieces, the Hound Fortress and the Tallbird Fortress. Both set pieces contain plenty of their respective mob spawners, just like the Living Forest and the Queen's Gathering ones, but instead of trees, there are now rocks of all types. Make sure to bring a giant here to clear them out. The Hound's Fortress spawn with a 7% chance in the deserts, and the Tallbird Fortress spawns with a 6% chance on rocky turf or in the Mosaic Biome. Sticking with the theme of trapped resources like most of these set pieces are, we arrive at the Pig Torches set piece. You probably remember seeing these around the terrarium chests at a 30% occurrence rate, but in 5% of the worlds, they spawn as separate set pieces in other places as well. There are 4 types, the one with 4 by the chest, 8 torches protecting grass on savanna turf, 4 torches protecting grass on savanna turf, and 1 torch protecting berry bushes on grassland turf. There are also less important set pieces like 5 fire or ice hounds sleeping around a fire staff or an ice staff that forces rain if you pick it up, a spider ambush trap, a killer bee trap, one that I don't even think counts as a set piece, which contain many pig houses and graves in the forest at the edge of the Oasis Desert, and that mole haven I talked about in the King Biome, when the area around Glomer's statue becomes extra big. Finally, there were some I never even got, like the Imprisoned Pig, the Ruins Camp, the Miners Camp that was featured in the Dragonfly Speedrun tournament, and the Icebox Trap that forces winter that I only think exists in Sola Don't Starve. Set pieces are always cool and welcome in my opinion, even if they're useless traps, since they create fun experiences. But there are still some set pieces I have yet to talk about, so buckle up. If you've played DST for more than an hour, you have most likely encountered a boon of some kind. In these set pieces, you can find random assortments of items with varying usefulness, and some are definitely more rare than others. Note that the statistics I'm about to drop also includes boons I found in the caves. The perhaps most sought after boon is the iconic walking cane boon, and it's easy to see why. If you find this beauty, which is not impossible with its 6% occurrence, you don't need to go through all the RNG I discussed about killing walruses. That's a win in my book, and the most likely place to find this boon is in the middle of the surface, with 4 out of 6 of them generating there. This next bit is gonna be a lot of numbers. First is this particular miner hat boon that I got 21 of in 100 worlds. There's also a miner hat boon with a bat that only spawns in the cave 5% of the time. There are also moguls, 2%, dapper vest, 5%, puffy vest with or without beard, hair and eye staff, 9%, feather hat, an impressive 20%, football helmet, 6%, beefalo hat, 12%, life-giving amulet, 2%, marble suit, 2%, beekeeper hat and bee nades, 3%, rain gear, 1%, backpack and straw, 2%, bird traps and bush hat, 2%, top hat, 14%, bush hat, 12%, and the light bulb farm, 9%, that can only spawn in the caves. I also know there are morning star and panflute boons, but they were rare enough that I didn't even get them once. In addition to that, there are a whole bunch of common boons you can get. I got 63 board boons, 74 cutstone boons, 89 rope boons, and 95 crockpot boons. These were the ones I deemed particularly useful, so I grouped the rest into just common boons, which every world contain an average of about 7 of, ranging from 2 to 13. I don't really have time to cover them all though, and I'm sure most of you don't really care anyways, so I'm just gonna direct you to the Beard's guide on failed survivors in the description. He doesn't work out percentages, which is why I focus on that here, but he's great at showcasing many of them. Jeez, that was a lot of numbers, so let's move on to Clockwork Set Pieces. I'll keep this brief since this is about exploration, but in the lore of DST, a lot revolves around chess pieces. Charlie and Maxwell have a feud that is often compared to a chess game, and therefore Clockwork and Shadow versions of the chess rook, knight and bishop have made it into DST, since both Charlie and Maxwell have had the power to conjure creatures into the constant at some point in time. Let's start with the set pieces where you can encounter the Clockwork variants. The by far most common of these set pieces is the 9 statues set piece, where a single Clockwork Knight can be found. It has a staggering occurrence rate of 97% and can spawn anywhere on the map, unfortunately. I didn't find any reliable way of locating these Clockwork set pieces, so let's go through the rest quickly. But note that all of these can appear multiple times, unlike the supposed to be guaranteed 9 statues set piece. So we have 5 knights, 17 times, Maxwell's M with 3 knights and 1 rook, 13 times, 4 knights and 1 rook, 19 times, rook with a backpack boon 22 times, rook with a marble boon 17 times, 2 knights 17 times, bishop and knight with 2 variations 42 times, 2 gears 2 knights 13 times, and finally 2 gears 2 bishops 24 times. That's all the Clockwork set pieces. Now you've seen them and know how likely you are to find them. The second type of chess pieces that I mentioned were the shadow versions, and these are a summonable boss related to the marble pieces we discussed a couple times now. The way you summon these guys is by bringing 3, one of each type, of these marble set pieces scattered around the map to a location with at least one of all 3 types of sockets for these pieces. These are perhaps the most common issue people who boss rush have with exploration in DST, so it would be a shame if I didn't try to cover it and perhaps give some useful tips on how to find them faster. Let me start by mentioning the fact that the marble pieces that spawn in the world are directly tied to the number of marble statues that spawn. If there are 3 knight statues, then there will be 3 knight heads, and it's the same for the bishops and rooks as well. The main marble statue set piece looks like this, and it's pretty much guaranteed to spawn in your world. It only happened once that it failed to appear, but in that world there were at least one of each of the pieces anyways. You should look for this one in the starter biome or in the outer biomes for the best chances. 34% of the time, this is the only set piece you'll get. But if you're somewhat lucky, there are many other set pieces that can provide marble pieces for improved chances at finding them faster. Well, when I say many, I really mean many combinations. This set piece, with 9 tiles of marble flooring, contains a random amount of statues. The statue in the middle tile has about a 60% chance of being replaced with a rook statue, which will then generate another rook nose somewhere in the world. When this happens, it's guaranteed that at least one of the other statues has transformed into a bishop statue, and that another one of the statues has become a knight statue. Thus, in those cases, you effectively have 2 copies of the complete set piece. It doesn't end there usually though, because any number of the other statues have a chance to transform into additional bishop and knight statues. This makes the rook nose by far the most rare of the 3 pieces. What evens it out a little bit, however, are the 2 other potential set pieces containing marble statues. One with 2 knights, 22%, and one with a single rook, 13%. These set pieces bring the rook nose a little bit closer to the bishop head, but it puts the knight head way ahead of the others. In total, there are generated 145 rook noses, 175 bishop heads, and a whopping 227 knight heads. So, the knight heads are the most common, but how do I find them fast? To begin with, the Beefalo Savannah, the Starter Biome, and the Molehill Biome are way ahead of the curve at 54, 52, and 52 relative occurrences, respectively. The biome in 4th place is the Mosaic at only 43 occurrences, so I would definitely start in those 3 biomes. The worst biomes to look in are the Rockylands and the Nest Biomes, since it's impossible for them to contain any marble pieces. They can contain the marble statues though, so be aware of that. Then we have, from the bottom, the Quarry 21, Bee Queen 23, Meteor 26, and Oasis 26. The remaining biomes are all in the middle between 31 and 41 occurrences. From what I gather, the marble pieces aren't actually completely random in how they spawn on the map. The general size of the biomes doesn't seem to matter, for instance. The triple Mac, that is generally bigger than the 3 top biomes, get beaten by almost 20 occurrences, and the Rockylands can't contain any pieces despite being respectable in size. Another metric to consider is how far out to look. Looking at the data I've gathered, I can see that all 3 types of pieces are most likely to be in the middle of the map. This may indicate that the middle part is generally the biggest section of the map, but the marble statue set piece is clearly least likely to spawn in the middle, so I would need more data points to confirm this. Another thing that speaks against that is the degree to which this is the case for the different pieces. The rook nose has 45 close, 52 middle, and 49 outer, but meanwhile the bishop has 53, 72, 53. That is a way bigger difference. To summarize, I suggest that you look in the Beefalo Savannah first, and especially if it spawns as a middle biome. You should also stay clear of the Rockylands, since that's clearly the worst place to look. Finally, I took note of the worlds I thought could be possible to speedrun the shadow pieces on day 1 in, since yes, the point of the marble pieces is to bring one of each type together and mine the statues on a new moon to summon the shadow pieces boss. I deemed 4 out of the 100 worlds to be potentially speedrunnable with enough luck and skill, and an additional 6 for a total of 10 if you're playing Wolfgang or Walter that can move the marble pieces way faster. I hope this helps your search. Before we venture down into the caves, I think we should explore the ocean first. The ocean has biomes just like the mainland, but this time they're far less interesting. If you look at just the ocean itself, you have coastal, swell, rough, and hazardous oceans that are all very similar. Coastal is the area around land. It has the brightest water out of the four, and the most interesting thing you'll find here are lobsters and kelp. Swell Ocean is a little less bright and can be as far out as the edge of the world or right next to the coast. Here you start seeing sea stacks and Malbatross shoals where you fight the Malbatross boss. You can find her at a spawner 25% of the time, and otherwise you'll have to fish for her to spawn with a 10% chance for each fish you hook. There will be an average of around 12 shoals in the entire ocean, but the range is massive between 4 and 23 spawners. I'm serious. You might get unlucky enough to have 4 spawners in the entire ocean. This shouldn't be a thing, KLEI. Fix it. Next up is the rough ocean, and the only new thing here is the color of the water, more sea stacks, and the seaweed patches. These guys are really easy to find, so I didn't bother taking notes on them. Just don't make them all mad at the same time by smashing your boat into them and you'll be fine. Then finally we have the disappointing hazardous ocean. Contrary to what the name implies, there are no dangers here apart from more sea stacks. There also spawns floating debris here that you can use to repair your boat. Not dangerous. So what interest do I have in going to the ocean at all then? Well, there's the Lunar Island, where you face off against a crafting table, craft awesome axes, and fight literal salad. How you find the Lunar Island has been talked about many times on YouTube, but what it basically boils down to is that the mainland and the Lunar Islands are supposed to form a circle together that has been cut off at 2 points. The area where the circle is cut off will always be coastal water that won't contain sea stacks, but the most important thing for you is that the 2 spots on the mainland where the circle is cut off will have very straight edges. If you run along the edges of your world and find a really straight edge, then the Lunar Island will be in that direction. A word of warning though, I found some worlds where the circle was really deceptive. I mean, look at this. Looking for the straight edges rather than the circle will be your best bet in my opinion. With that said, there's an alternate way to find the Lunar Island that is truly 100% foolproof, but it does require some extra work. The astral detector that I'll talk about how to get in a bit once we enter the caves can point you directly towards the Lunar Island. To get it to do this, you first have to let it guide you to 2 buried altar pieces on the mainland, but once those 2 are dug up, you can simply place it on the ground and follow the arrow. Works 100% of the time, but like I said, and we'll go over, you need to do some dangerous stuff to acquire that. On the Lunar Island, everything interesting is very easy to find. It contains 5 relatively small biomes: the Rocky Beach, Lunar Forest, Lunar Bath, Lunar Mine, and the Lunar Archipelago. The beach and the archipelago feature the same resources in driftwood, kelp, reeds, moonglass, bones, and anemones. Quite a lot, and the only difference between them is that the beach is attached to the Lunar Island, while the archipelago is made up of smaller islands out in the water. The forest contains many loon trees and some shattered spider dens, while the Lunar Bath mainly features hot springs and salamanders. In both of these biomes you also find lunar saplings, carrots, moonglass, celestial fissures, and even more loon trees. Finally, the most interesting biome, the lunar mines. You can find boulders to mine, celestial fissures, but most importantly, the 3 lunar altar pieces that the astral detector was pointing to. These are related to the main questline, and it's important that you mine them out while you're here, because once you do, the astral detector will lead us to our next point of interest on the ocean, the Crab King. If you don't stumble upon the Crab King by accident or scour the entire ocean, the only way to find him is with the astral detector, like I talked about. Once all 5 other altar pieces have been dug up, it will direct us to a ring of sea stacks with Crab King in the center. Crab King is a boss that is required to be beaten if you want to be able to fight the final boss, Celestial Champion. With Don't Starve being the least straightforward game ever though, we also need to fulfill a special condition before the fight for Crab King to actually drop the final altar piece that we need. That is to socket Pearl's Pearl into him, and getting that is easier said than done, and since exploration is involved, I'm gonna help you with that too. The pearl can only be given to you by the NPC known as Pearl, who lives on Pearl's Island somewhere in the ocean. To find it, you either need to stumble upon it or read a message in a bottle. The messages can spawn literally anywhere in the ocean, so if you sail around, you should find one, and when you read it, it will simply reveal Pearl's location on the map. Note that further bottles you find have a chance to reveal sunken treasure instead. Sail over there and complete 10 of our quests to get the Pearl. It's as easy as that, right? Right? No. Well, in typical DST fashion, we first need to find yet another point of interest on the ocean called a brine shoal. There will always be 8 of these in your world, scattered randomly across the ocean yet again. This time, however, you have no option other than to stumble upon these, unfortunately. It's a little bit easier since there are 8 of them, and the only thing I found about them is that they don't generate in hazardous oceans. Good luck! There are only 3 guaranteed things left to cover on the ocean, and the first of those generates in the exact same way as the brine shoals, except that there are only 3 and not 8 of them. I'm talking about the waterlogged biomes, and they contain figs, giant trees with nuts, grass gators that drop leafy meat, and skitter spiders. That's about it for this one. Next is the Moonquay Island. This island spawns where the rough sea is. Sail about 1 screen length in from the edge of the map, and sail in a square around the mainland until you find it. Some tricks to help you on your way though are 1. If a pirate raid comes to raid you, or 2. If you see a strange markings on the sea stacks, then you're looking in the right place. The final guaranteed exhibit is also the newest one added to the ocean, the Frostjaws Island. This is found anywhere in the ocean, but there is an indicator that you're close in the form of mini glaciers. The Frostjaw lets you trade ocean fish with it after you've defeated it in battle in exchange for bootleg getaways. These are the best items for getting around the ocean fast since they act as teleporters. But you can only use them on sections of the map you have revealed though, and the Frostjaw only accepts 5 trades of fish. Finally, KLEI recently added 2 random set pieces to the ocean. These were added after I did my 100 world analysis, but I still generated a few worlds afterwards to see how they behave. First up is the boat trap that can appear 0 to 2 times in your world. It looks like this, spawns in the swell ocean, and can have some pretty good loot in it, like pan flutes and starcaller staves. The other one is possibly more interesting, the Ocean Treasure Monument. It can also appear 0 to 2 times in your world, but note that if there are 2, one of them will only contain 1 item. The loot is amazing though, containing both ruins gear and ruins gems, but to obtain it, you need a pinching winch, whose blueprint you obtain from trading with Pearl. I think it's great that KLEI chose to add these types of set pieces to the ocean, and I wish they would add more and more. It's sad that they aren't guaranteed though, so I must advise against going out of your way to look for these. That was everything you needed to know about ocean exploration, so now we can finally head down one of those cave entrances we found to explore the caves and the ruins. While the cave is loading, I want to thank you for watching the video this far, and if you would take the time to press that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. This video has easily taken me over 300 hours to produce, and I would love to share more DST knowledge with you in the future, so please subscribe if you liked the video. Looks like the loading is done, so let's take a look at the biomes in the caves. The first thing you're gonna notice in the caves is that they are dark and that there are earthquakes regularly that drop minerals on your head that you need to avoid. To be able to explore anything here, I strongly encourage that you bring some kind of solution for light. Torches are fine if you make sure to have many of them, but ideally you want something to keep your hand slot free, like a miner hat or a lantern that you can craft with the plentiful light bulbs that grow down here. Now that you have light, you'll notice that the caves also generate very differently to the surface. If we look at the whole cave map, it is very reminiscent of a tree. There's a brownish trunk that branches out, and furthest out are the green leaves and the ruins are the roots. When we spawn in, we are in the leaves part of the caves, and the further down the tree we climb, the more dangerous the cave becomes. So keep this in mind. The caves are way more dangerous than the surface, not only because it's dark, but also because of the monsters. Don't get scared off, however. Even if you're a beginner, I'm gonna teach you how to get past all the monsters as we go through each biome, so that you too can reach the roots safely and obtain all the, shall I say, nutritious magical treasure.
Nice.
We start in the Mossy Biome, as you know, and I call them the leaves, since there are many of these in the caves. That's because all of the 8 to 10 stairs that you can enter the caves through lead here and only here. In these biomes you have the stairs, like I said, grass tufts, saplings / twig trees, the occasional berry bush, some evergreens, spider nests, foliage, and light flowers that grow light bulbs. Sub-biomes in this area include false green mushtree forests that are similar to surface false forest but for green mush trees that we'll look at more very soon. There are also sunken forest sub-biomes with dense evergreens and more spider nests, but by far the most noteworthy sub-biome is the Bunnyman fields. As the name would suggest, you can find the oh so creepy Bunnyman here, either in scattered huts or in Bunnyman towns or cities. The towns and cities are actually set pieces that can spawn in either this biome or the next one we'll talk about, and your world will include between 1 and 6 towns, with a 40% chance for a single city as well. The Bunnymen are therefore the first monster we have to get past to progress to further biomes. Luckily, the Bunnymen are neutral to you in most cases. The only time they'll be hostile are if you're playing a monster character like Weber or Wartox, or if you carry any meat items in your inventory. These angry vegans can see anything in your backpack as well, and they don't tolerate any meat except for hambats. The only realistic way you're able to get past here with meat is if you have bundled it somehow, hid it in Wilson's beard, or simply run past as fast as you can. If you chose the runaway option, make sure they're a good screen away even after they have de-aggroed until you gather yourself, since they very easily re-aggro. There is one final option, however, for those brave and lucky enough that does require a little more skill. That is the ominous giant tentacles that can be found in almost any cave biome. These serve as the wormholes of the caves, and your world will have 10 to 12 of them. To kill them, you have to hit them and back off before it spawns baby tentacles to slap you. Then you can either kill the baby tentacles or run around to the back and hit it again. Repeat the process until it dies and pick up any loot it drops before you jump through. The slimy pit will take you to another tentacle location just like a wormhole, killing the tentacle on the other side in the process. Word of warning though, the tentacles respawn in a mere 6 minutes, and the one that looks like this will lead to the darkest part of the ruins, where we definitely don't want to be yet, so don't try that one if you see it. If you didn't kill a tentacle, make sure that you look for a rocky path that will generally lead you in the right direction, or you could have just found another biome connected like normal. However you got past the bunnies, you will probably find yourself in one of 7 different biomes if the tentacle didn't put you somewhere weird. The first one of these biomes is the green mushtree forest. The only possible danger here is the potential for more bunnies, or you eating the mushrooms and going insane. What you'll find here other than bunnies will be green mush trees, green mushrooms, a few light flowers, and a small forest subbiome with typical surface forest contents. The green mushtree forest will also always be connected to the muddy biome, aka the trunk. Another biome you might have found yourself in is the blue mushtree forest. This biome is similar to the green mushtree forest, but it is in my opinion way better to find. This is because the blue mushrooms are great for healing, since they heal you 20 each for the cost of 15 sanity. So unless you're Wigfrid or Warley that can't eat them, make sure to pick or dig some up. There is however a new monster here that we need to avoid. Meet the dangling depth dweller spiders that come from the ceiling if you step on their webs or chop the web trees. To avoid them, just avoid the webs and you'll be completely fine. If you do step on them, however, run away quickly before they can lunge at you, and they will eventually go back to the ceiling. Another reason why the blue forest is so good is that it not only always connects to the trunk, but also to the Lunar Grotto. We'll visit the Lunar Grotto soon, but we still have some other biomes left to cover. A collection of mushtree forests wouldn't be complete without a red mushtree forest. According to my general observations, you are less likely to end up here than in the other ones, but this one also leads directly to the trunk. Instead of bunnies or depth dwellers, however, the monsters of this biome come from so-called stalagmites. These carnivorous spider dens work just like normal spider dens, except that they must be mined to be destroyed. They can only hold 2 to 3 spiders though, and the spiders inside are either cave spiders or spitters. If you for some reason aggro these, stick to our theme of running away. The stalagmites also only spawn in the cavernous red mushtree sub-biome, where you can also find normal stalagmites to mine. With us going through these so fast, you can probably tell that the cave biomes are generally less interesting than the surface biomes, and also less plentiful in resources. That's gonna change when we get to the ruins, but for now, another relatively tame biome. This one and the upcoming ones will be way darker than the Mushtree forests, thanks to the absence of mushtrees and light flowers. The main exhibit here, the Lobsters, are actually always peaceful to you unless you attack them, and they can even be recruited as followers by feeding them minerals. What you have to look out for instead are the occasional bat caves and nightmare fissures. Bats are annoying, they circle you making them hard to hit, and they attack very fast. Use a weapon that deals at least 50 damage per hit to one-shot them. A tentacle spike from the big tentacles are good if you didn't bring a ham bat from the surface. If you don't have any of those, I suggest to once again run. The nightmare fissures aren't always open, but when they are, they spawn nightmare creatures that will stalk you for a long time. You can't really outrun them, which is why I recommend you to bring a light source that is better than a torch, so that you can fight them without holding a light in your hand. If you're uncomfortable kiting them, try to bait out their attacks and then go for a swing when you see an opening. It's a good idea to learn to fight these, since we're gonna see a lot more of them the deeper we go. If you are unlucky, you might have to go through this biome, the cave spider biome. Fear not though, for we have already discussed the enemies here. This biome houses both depth dwellers, stalagmites, nightmare fissures, and bat caves, and there is no light either. I haven't mentioned this yet, but it's true for the mossy and lobster biomes as well. The cave spider biome doesn't look like the surface biomes or the mushtree forest in terms of structure. What I mean by that is, instead of being a blob, the biomes have a lot of narrow tunnels that lead to dead ends. To avoid running into these dead ends, think of the correct path as a spine that heads straight from the leaves to the trunk, and think of the dead end paths as the ribs attached to the spine. In other words, keep going in the most straight path possible that seems to naturally lead forward, and turn as little as possible. Also, watch out for the cave pillars in the spider and lobster biomes, since they block your movement and can get you stuck if you're trying to run away from something. Remember spine and you should be fine. If you notice you're heading into a dead end, just turn back and follow the spine. The final guaranteed biome you could potentially find yourself in also follows the spine structure, and is perhaps the most disgusting biome in the game. It's called the Guano Biome, and the whole ground is made out of bat poop, essentially. That means the only thing here is bats and rocks with the occasional nightmare fissure. Just get out of here as quickly as possible. The final biome that the Mossy Biome should be able to lead you to is actually a biome that is not guaranteed to spawn. It's the mixed mushtree forest, and annoyingly, this biome follows the spine structure despite being a mushtree forest. What's also annoying with this biome is that it never actually connects to the trunk either, but rather to another one of the 3 branch biomes we just looked at, meaning not to another mushtree forest. The contents of this biome are, as you might expect, a mix of all 3 mushtree and mushroom types, as well as plenty of light flowers. It also has 3 sub-biomes that are basically a false forest version of each type of mushtree forest. These can lead you to easily believe that you've found a real mushtree forest, especially since the red one even contains stalagmites. Yeah, you're pretty unlucky if you get placed behind this biome, and the worst thing is that up to 2 of these can spawn per world. Another random cave biome that can't spawn next to a mossy biome, but one you could have ended up in if you took a tentacle, is the cave swamp. This biome is almost exactly the same as the surface swamp, except that the merms and the mosquitoes have been replaced with light flowers and a lot more spiders. This biome follows the spine structure, except that it doesn't have any biomes behind it ever. Think of it like the surface Rockylands biome, since there is virtually no reason to come here when you're not specifically looking for tentacles or reeds, for example. We had the big bat cave or the Guano biome earlier, but there are also small bat caves. It's my belief that these are just here to annoy you, since there is nothing here except some rocks and maybe a touchstone or a tentacle. Your world can have anything between 0 and 5 small bat caves, with an average of about 3. On the topic of small, useless biomes that can hide your points of interest, meet what I call the small trio biome. It consists only of 3 sub-biomes, a mini spider biome, a mini swamp, and a mini mossy biome. There's nothing good here, so just leave, since there's never anything behind them either. Since there aren't any good random biomes in the caves, I'm thankful to finally be able to leave them behind for a much better biome that is also guaranteed, the Lunar Grotto. This is such a pretty biome that is always found behind the blue Mushtree forest, meaning none of the other random biomes can ever spawn behind the blue Mushtree forest. In the Lunar Grotto, you'll find lunar mushtrees, moonglass springs, bulbous light bugs that pretend to be light flowers, mush gnome spawners, and mole bats. All of this may sound great, but it's really only the mush gnomes and light bugs that are. The moonglass can't be used away from an altar until the endgame. The mush trees are inconvenient to chop because of the exploding spores they drop, and the mole bats screech and don't really drop anything good while being easy to kill. The mush gnomes, however, are in my opinion great. They drop living logs guaranteed, meaning you can come here instead of looking for living trees if you're afraid of getting screwed over by RNG. Grab at least 3 when you're here, but ideally as many as you can. The more the merrier. The light bugs can serve as an alternative light source since they orbit you if you catch one of them with a bug net. You just have to keep them alive, which is actually easier than it sounds until we get to the ruins. Behind the Lunar Grotto, there will also always be a tunnel clogged with boulders, and if you mine your way through, you'll find the Ancient Archives biome. This biome contains 0 dangers at all. There can't even be earthquakes here, and that's because the biome is currently dormant. If you're new to DST and want to follow me all the way into the ruins, I highly recommend that you stop here first to mine the golden Thulsite statues that you find here. Thulsite is the magical crafting material of the ancients, and it's gonna be used later to craft ruins gear, so grab as much as you can here when it's completely safe. Everything else in the biome is basically useless until we come back here with an iridescent gem later, once we've been in the ruins. It's here we get the astral detector later that we use to explore the oceans, if you remember, but for now we can leave with our Thulsite. Whichever biome you have to go through to get here, this orange muddy turf is what you're looking for. You've made it to the muddy biome and the start of what I refer to as the trunk of the caves. This is the central hub of the caves. It contains the most amount of giant tentacles, it's the gateway to the ruins, and it connects to the 6 so-called branch biomes in the green, blue and red Mushtree forests and the spider, lobster and bat biomes. This biome almost has 2 main biomes with how large it usually is, one with a lot of light flowers and the other with a lot of stalagmites and slurtle mounds. Hold up, did I really say slurtles? Yes, that is the monster of this biome, and they are basically really tanky snails that love to eat rocks. These also appear in the lobster biome, but I felt it more natural to mention them here. We're actually gonna stop here for a while before we head into the ruins, since there are 2 items I'd like us to get from this biome before moving on. The first one is a snurtle shell armor that is dropped by a variant of the slurtle called the snurtle. This snail is completely harmless and easy to kill, unlike the slurtles, but they are more rare, so just go around hitting the slurtle mounds until one pops out, and it will drop the armor 60% of the time. The other item we need to get is the cave version of Chester, called Hutch. He can be found in a little sub biome of the muddy biome that is quite hard to spot, but it includes a couple of slurtle mounds and stalagmites and will be located along a tunnel leading from the muddy biome to one of the 6 branch biomes. Make sure you cover every inch of this sub-biome to not miss the fishbowl on the ground that Hutch is attached to, just like the Chester eyebone is to Chester. Before we move on, I just want to mention this guy, the Nightmare Werepig boss, that is trapped between 3 marble pillars. We can leave him here for now until we make it back from the ruins. I'm sure you can tell that much of Don't Starve Together revolves around the ruins and that you have to go there to beat the game, so that's why I'm teaching you just how to do that. From here, there are 3 methods of finding the ruins. Method 1. Just run around the edges of the muddy biome until you find lichen. This is the slowest method, but the easiest. Method 2. Look for very rough lines between the light flower fields and the stalagmite fields and follow them in either direction to find the ruins. I find this very inconsistent, decent. I'm bad at it, and I don't advise it for new players, but it is consistently faster than Method 1. Since I'm not good at this, I leave it to Carrion/Porcus to explain in his awesome video linked in the description. And Method 3, and this one is stupid. Get extremely lucky and have the cave entrance you go through glitch out and put you inside the ruins. This happened in 2 of the worlds I generated. One of them had a whopping 3 cave entrances inside the ruins, where 2 of them were right next to the complete pseudoscience station, and the other world had 1 entrance into the ruins with a developer graveyard set piece right next to it. That world even had 2 developer graveyards. For those who want to play on those seeds, they will be in the description, and they are worlds 52 and 64 in my spreadsheet. Realistically though, if you're not playing on those seeds, your best option is Method 1. Run around the muddy biome. However you did it, if you spot lichen, you have found the Wilds Biome. A neat trick if you see the lichen across a chasm, or any biome you want to get to for that matter, is to just left click on that piece of land and your character will often walk the correct way. The wilds generally make up half of what's referred to as the outskirts of the ruins. In other words, we are making our way down the trunk trying to reach the roots. In this biome, you'll find lichen, some disgusting droopy pillars, blue ponds where you can fish eels, slurpers, and depth worms. Slurpers are nasty monsters that jump and try to attach themselves to your head. If they do, you drop your hat, which can be detrimental if you're wearing the miner hat. Quickly unequip the slurper by right-clicking your hat slot and use the light from it to pick up the miner hat again. Try to stay calm and it will be fine. Depth worms are a little more dangerous with their 75 damage bites, but they are easy to kite if you familiarize yourself with the attack pattern. I suggest you kill one of them and take the time to craft moggles with their glowberry for better vision that will be helpful going further. While going through this biome, you also need to be careful about the nightmare phase. That phase is something going on in the background, and it's a lot to explain, but know that things will be way more dangerous when it's active. Out here in the wilds, you can easily tell if nightmare phase is active, since there will be a lot of those nightmare fissures we saw earlier open. Other than that, there isn't much more to the wilds apart from choosing the right way to head from here. What you are looking for is one of these, a muddy patch without lichen that has blue mushrooms. You can find this patch by the big initial lichen field that you entered, meaning don't run off to random branches since they are red herrings, and instead stick to the edges of the big lichen field when looking for the mushroom patch. The patch will be attached to what's called a village biome that marks the end of the trunk, behind which you'll find the ruins. If you see a village without one of these patches that is just attached directly to the wilds, then don't head there since the ruins won't be there. This red herring will be referred to as Village 2 from now on. If you're really unlucky though, you can also have the imposter known as Village 3 that has a mushroom patch but no ruins attached to it, in addition to the first Village 1. This is a phenomenon I call split ruins. Split ruins can have varying degrees of severity. If there is simply a Village 3, I say that the ruins have a split value of 1. If an important ruins branch spawns in a random spot other than Village 1, which can happen, it has a split value 2. In the worst case scenario, if all important ruins branches are in random spots, that's a split value 3. In my playthrough here on YouTube, I had a split value of 2, but I got extremely lucky and found the best branch by accident. So the lesson is to be prepared that the ruins can spawn elsewhere than behind Village 1, where they're supposed to spawn. Here's a list of how common the different split values were. If you're curious about the split value 4, we'll get to that crazy world soon. Let's finally look at what's actually in the village. Remember that nightmare phase I warned you about earlier? Yeah, you want to make sure that you don't see any nightmare fissures until you enter the village biomes. That is of course thanks to Exhibit A, Splomonkeys. These monkeys are your last obstacle before reaching the ruins proper, and they're really annoying. In their normal form, they steal anything you leave on the ground, and they'll steal items from Hutch. To avoid robbery, you should either empty Hutch beforehand or run far enough away from him so that the monkeys can't see you and him at the same time, because then they won't touch him. Don't try to hit the monkeys, since they will just stalk you endlessly and pester you by throwing poop at you. I assure you that both you and your character will go insane from it. To summarize, just ignore everything in the village and book it through the biomes, staying away from the monkeys as much as possible so that they don't take interest in you. We also really don't want to be here during the nightmare phase, since the monkeys turn into ravenous shadow monsters called shadow splomonkeys that chase you literally indefinitely. At that point, you just have to run until the nightmare phase ends, but we never ended up in that situation, hopefully, since we were patient and made sure that there were no visible nightmare fissures before we entered the village. Once you enter the village, start by running straight through it, since the ruins will appear at the back of it. If you find a large empty space like this with just random turfs, don't even bother looking there, since the ruins won't be there. Now you've hopefully found a ruins branch if you weren't unlucky enough to have a third-degree split. If that happens and you don't find the ruins, you should run to this next biome that has a 35% chance to spawn next to the wilds. It's the jungle biome. In the jungle, you'll find plenty of banana trees along with some splomonkey pods, so be careful. There is usually a wilds-looking part behind the banana trees where you'll find the ruins if they're split. If the jungle doesn't exist, your best bet is to scour the rest of the wilds. Good luck. This is it. You've finally found the ruins when you see a suspicious looking tunnel leading to a pillar room with chairs and broken relics. This is the sacred branch of the ruins, and out of the two ruins branches, this is the most consistent and abundant one. We'll get to the other ones soon. In the sacred branch, you are guaranteed to find 4 different rooms, but if you're lucky, they can appear multiple times each. The first one, and the worst one, is the one you came in through, that just contains relics and one cave hole. To grab the loot in the cave holes, you need an orange amulet that we can craft later, so don't bother with them yet. Take note of any green gems, yellow gems, or thulecite you see though. The next room is the most spicy one, and the one you're primarily looking for. It contains 8 thulecite statues that can be mined for thulecite and the gem in the staff. If you don't see a gem, mine it anyway, for it drops nightmare fuel then. Be careful of 2 things though. 1, if the nightmare phase that we've talked about is active, the statues will glow and have a chance to spawn nightmare creatures. And 2, there are 2 clockwork bishops here that you need to kill or sneak around. If you opt to kill them, use a torch to set them on fire and kill them when they burn. Note that other nearby clockworks will aggro if you attack them though. If you instead opt to sneak, stick to the edges of the room. 6 out of the 8 statues will then be safe to mine, but the bishops are close enough to aggro if you try to mine the 2 statues without gems that spawn next to each other. When you have mined all the statues you can, take note of how many green and yellow gems you get. Ideally, you want to mine statues until you have at least 2 of each. If you're feeling particularly ballsy though, you can also hammer the broken clockworks around for a chance at gems, gears, and trinkets, but be aware that they can spawn clockworks 10% of the time. Another room that you should ideally stay away from is the one with pillars and 5 statues in a cross pattern. Guarding this site are 2 rooks and 1 bishop, so unless you think you can manage that or got the gems elsewhere, avoid them. If you brought bulbous light bugs, they will die to the rooks, and so will Hutch, so make sure to leave them out of the scuffle if possible. The biggest danger though are the 4 nightmare lights here. They function exactly like the nightmare fissures in the wilds, in that they spew out nightmares, but they also drain your sanity insanely quickly. Sadly, we actually need nightmare fuel for the ruins crafting, so you have to farm some nightmare creatures. I leave it to you to deal with them, or you can check out my video about an extreme case, but don't take that one as a guide. With the 2 green and 2 yellow gems, the thulecite from here and the archives, the living logs from the Lunar Grotto, as well as the nightmare fuel you farmed, you can now head to the final guaranteed room of the sacred biome to craft your items. There are no dangers here apart from the 2 nightmare lights, so you should be fine. Just make sure a rook or you don't destroy the ancient pseudoscience station here, since that's where the magical gear is gonna be crafted. If you're only looking to beat the game, we can leave the station as it is, but if you want access to all the recipes, you need to invest 6 Toolsite to repair the station. I'll leave the crafting to you, but note that we have done all of the exploration and gathered all the materials needed to beat the Celestial Champion and to craft the Astral Detector. Note that what I've taught you here isn't foolproof. Going to the ruins still requires skill, or everyone would be able to do it. But note that the more blue mushrooms, other healing and armor you bring, the higher chance it is that you will survive. If you don't feel satisfied with this and are also looking to beat the Ancient Fuel Weaver that can also be argued as a final boss, then we need to go a little bit further, however. For the sake of completion, I will therefore cover the Sub Biomes that have a chance to spawn here in the Sacred branch, and also the other ruins branch, starting with the Muddy Sacred. This biome looks like the Wilds brought into the ruins, and it essentially is. Note that there's about a 63% chance that a useful Sacred room spawns somewhere inside it as well. The Danger Sacred is next, and it's home to many nightmare lights, but it's completely safe to mine the statues here when it's not a nightmare phase. Finally, you can find a biome called the Military Pits, but one I like to call the Chaos Room. This biome can spawn in the other branch as well that comes up next, and it contains 2 parts. The first one is an area with guano turf and nightmare lights, and the other one contains 1 to 3 Chaos Rooms, and many broken clockworks with 2 rooks and 1 bishop guarding them. The reason I call it the Chaos Room is that you can use the rooks to smash the broken clockworks, which turns into bullet hell if multiple rooms spawn beside each other. Don't go here unless you're confident you can handle the sheer chaos. Remember when you found the Sacred branch? Yeah, you could have accidentally been baited into this branch instead if you happen to find it first. This square marks the start of a military branch and the entrance to a potential military biome, which the world can spawn up to 2 of. There will always be 1 actual military biome behind one of these, but the second one only has a 22% chance to contain a quote-unquote real military biome. In other cases, it may only contain something like a military pits biome. The reason we went to the Sacred branch instead of a military branch is not only that we didn't want to get baited by a false branch that wastes spoilage time on the blue mushrooms, but also that the military branch has a chance to contain nothing and a very high chance to contain not enough of what we need. With that being said, if you feel pressured for time and can't find the Sacred biome, it's okay to go in here. Just note that all the statues and crafting stations in the military biome are guarded by clockworks. Well, all of them except the free one at the entrance that you should of course grab. If you, however, somehow lack Toolsite to complete a station, or if a rook destroyed all of them, you can look for the Complete Altar Room. This room is guaranteed to spawn and has a 55-44% chance to spawn in the Sacred or military branches respectively. Observe the lacking percent. That's not a mistake and we'll get to it later. The complete station will be guarded by 2 bishops and 4 nightmare lights, so evaluate your healing and armor situation if it's a worthy risk to take. This altar room also contains a curious chest. A tip is that if you put these specific items in the chest in this specific order, or kill a resting horror in the Sacred branch while insane, you can use the blueprint you'll get from that to complete another of Pearl's tasks. In my experience, looking for this altar room is a waste of time if you came with Toolsite from the archives, but it can be a good idea otherwise. At a pseudoscience station, by crafting a Toolsite medallion and looking at the map, you can see an ancient symbol on the map somewhere in the void. This is a symbol for the ancient key that is needed to fight the ancient fuel weaver, and it's our final stop in the ruins. Seeing the key on the map trivializes the finding of the Labyrinth biome that has a 44-55% chance to spawn in either the Sacred or military branches respectively. In other words, the exact opposite percentages of the altar room. This biome is undeniably a maze that also happens to contain a lot of dangling depth dweller webs. To avoid activating them, you need to hug the edges of the path unless you are a webber. Other than the occasional clockwork, the only thing you'll find on your way to the key are treasure chests. These can be trapped with spiders or small hunger, sanity or durability altering effects, but they contain some nice loot. Without much hassle, if you have the moggles at least, you should make it to the ancient guardian Guardian's arena. Kill him to get the key. I'll let someone else teach you the fight, but I can show you the 5 ruins rushes I did where I managed to kill him 4 times. I'm bad at the game, so he got me once. The first run started out really well since I found the sacred branch on day 1. Unfortunately, the ruins were extremely split and the Guardian was miles away. That gave me the idea that I should gather living logs in the runs to simulate an actual playthrough. So I did that, and after a while I also got a yellow gem. I'm semi-colorblind, so excuse me if I run past rare gems. They're really hard for me to distinguish. What didn't help was that I got pranked by the Clockworks and the crafting menu, so that I ended up crafting a full cost poolside suit. If I hadn't wasted time doing that, I'm sure I could beat the Guardian day 4, but day 5 it was. Run 2 had an awful start. Look at this deceptive world generation. I had to loop back and around, which took me minutes to realize. Not even the tentacle helped. Thanks to that, I only made it to the ruins on day 4, but thanks to Omega skill and some god tier gaming, I killed the ancient Guardian the same day. Incredible! In run 3, I had the worst possible mushroom luck and only got a single living log, but I managed to find the ruins on day 2 despite that. I was so close to finishing the run on day 3, which I would have done if I hadn't played it safe and crafted poolside crowns. Run 4 was a bust. After great mushroom RNG and ruins day 2, I wasted a lot of time trying to craft armor that I didn't even craft, and after a terrible fight, I unequipped the knight armor I had by accident, which killed me on day 4 with a Guardian at less than 200 health. The 5th and final run was a little slow. I fought frogs for no reason, I spawned in a mixed Mushtree forest, and I got trolled by village 3 since the ruins were split. I also had to find the yellow gem I needed in the Labyrinth, which wasted more time, but I was able to close the run on day 5. All in all, I was able to apply the tips I've taught fairly well, since none of the runs took more than 5 days. If you haven't gone to the ruins, I advise taking your time, contrary to what I did here. Prepare as much as you need with the items I've gone over, like moggles and blue mushrooms, and don't feel like you need to go balls to the walls with Wigfrid like I did. I just wanted to provide a proof of concept. With that, the ruins are done. Well, the branches at least, but there's one final biome left that we skedaddled from earlier that I still want to go over. That biome is the intrepid Atrium, the residence of the ancient fuel weaver. To find this biome, you have 2 options. Number 1, do it the intended way and find the giant tentacle that leads here. It will look like this, be guarded by 2 bishops, and it's always gonna be located in either the green Mushtree forest or the Guano biome. Or number 2, use some method of teleportation and teleport in if it spawns close enough to the edge. To help with tip 2, there's a thing referred to as the Atrium Bridge, and this is a tiny branch of land that extends from the village but ends abruptly like it's been cut off. It's not guaranteed to spawn as you can see, but it would be the thing to look for if you want to skip killing tentacles. Know that the Atrium is not a friendly place. You'll find lots of spiders and clockworks, very little food, and no resources. So the only reason you want to come here is to fight the fuel weaver. Otherwise, you should turn back. I'll leave the rest to you if you want to beat him, but I've told you where to find him. There are still 2 questions that I've left unanswered until now. How do I find Toadstool, and what is this crazy world generation that you keep bringing up? You see, the information I've provided in the past regarding Toadstool has been a little misleading, since I didn't know any actual percentages like I imagine most people don't. That's why I'm happy to announce that I have some very good tricks to apply when it comes to finding Toadstool. Toadstool will have 3 potential spawners in the caves, but he will only appear in one of them. Which one it is randomly determined when you enter the caves for the first time. In other words, it can be re-rolled by rolling back to day 1, meaning the true spawn is completely random among the 3. Where the actual spawners are though, is way more predictable. Most people probably think that the muddy biome is the best place to look for Toadstool, and that makes sense. The muddy biome is pretty easy to find, and I'm pretty sure that there is always supposed to be a Toadstool spawner there. The thing is that just because there is a 100% chance, if that had even been the case, of there being a spawner there. That only means there is a 33% chance for Toadstool to actually be there. The interesting part is that there happens to be so that the other 4 biomes that are supposed to be able to contain a Toadstool spawner have a chance to contain both the other spawners. The Lobster biome therefore actually manages to surpass the 98 Toadstool occurrences of the Muddy biome with a staggering 113 occurrences. That actually makes the Lobster biome more likely to contain Toadstool. The other biomes that can potentially contain spawners are the Green Mushtree Forest, 51 occurrences, the Cave Spider biome, 30 occurrences, and the Bat Cave, 7 occurrences. That adds up to 300, right? Respawners times 100 world is 300, so why are there only 299? This is actually crazy, but I got one world where Toadstool spawned in the Labyrinth. Not only that, but the Labyrinth spawned in the Cave Spider biome, like this, and the altar room also spawned behind that. That was so ridiculous, I awarded it a 4 in ruin split value, which shouldn't even be possible. The seed is in the description, go check it out. Now, back to Toadstool. What is the best strategy for finding the guy? What I recommend you do is to first look for the Muddy biome. If you find one of the previously mentioned biomes first, except for the Bat Cave, look around that one first and make sure you go around the entire thing in case there are 2 spawners. Then, if you find the Muddy biome, look around it until you find Toadstool, but interrupt your search if you see the Lobster biome and go there immediately. If you don't find him in there or in the Muddy biome, head to the Green Mushtree Forest and then the Spider biome. Finally, if you still haven't found him, go to the Bat Cave, and if he's not there, you have to search the entire map since he's somewhere stupid like in the Labyrinth. I tried to speedrun the Toadstool cap 4 times as well to prove that these tips are practical. In the first run, I made the mistake of not looking through the Lobster biome for a second spawner, and I died to pesky nightmare creatures right before I was about to find it on day 4. In run 2, I had insane luck and spawned in the Green Mushtree Forest where he was, so that didn't really prove anything. In run 3, I found him on day 2 at the first spawner again in the Muddy biome, but run 4 was painful. I had another one of those deceptive Mossy Biomes that I had to loop back and around to get out of. I found an empty spawner in the Muddy biome, but even then, I found him as early as day 3 in the Green Mushtree Forest. I hope this helped you in your search for Toadstool. If you plan on fighting him, Toadstool is nearly impossible if you don't know how to deal with him, so don't expect to go in and win without a good strategy. That is gonna bring us to the end of this guide. I'm extremely impressed if you sat through this entire feature-length film of a video, and I really hope you learned some useful tricks at the very least. This video has taken an insane amount of time to produce, which I'm sure you can understand, so a like and subscribe goes a long way. If this video gets 50,000 likes and gets me to 10,000 subscribers, I'll make another in-depth guide like this one on how to defeat all the bosses. Before we end it, I'll do a quick summary of the most important tips and tricks here, in case you forgot any. Take all these points with a tiny grain of salt, since I'm sure there are counterexamples given how buggy DST world generation can be sometimes. Okay, there are 15 biomes in a world, 5 of which are random. The random ones are not equally good in different ways, so please fix that, KLEI. The Mosaic and Molehill Biomes always spawn next to the starter biome if they spawn. The Pig Village Forest will have a cobbled road that connects to the Pig King 98% of the time, and if the road leads behind the Mosaic biome, Pig King is in that direction. The Drama stage will always spawn in the Triple Mac first and the Molehill second, so you don't have those biomes if it spawns elsewhere. The Mandrake Forest is the best place to look for living trees, but the Pig Village Forest is good too. For living logs, you probably want to go to the Lunar Grotto though. The Terrarium will always be in the Pig Village Forest if it exists, and otherwise in the Mandrake Forest. The Junkyard spawns in the same biome as the Terrarium 85% of the time, and otherwise in the Mandrake Forest. There are many random set pieces, none of which are necessary for survival, but they are nice to have. The Spider Quarry should always spawn next to the Oasis Desert. Neither the Mandrake Forest, Oasis Desert, nor any of the random surface biomes can ever contain a touchstone, so don't look there if you're dead. The Oasis Desert also doesn't contain roads, wormholes, or caves, and you can see the antlion spawner before summer. The Rockylands biome shouldn't be explored for any reason until you've searched everywhere else for the marble sculpture set piece. Chester should be looked for in the Molehill, next in the Ponds biome and the Pig Village Forest, and if none of them exist, he's 100% in the swamp, and so is the Cobblestone Road. Marble pieces have the best chance of being found in the starter biome, the Beefalo Savannah, or the middle of the map, and the marble sculpture set piece tends to be in outer biomes. Marble pieces cannot spawn in the Rockylands or nest biomes, and the worst place other than those is the Quarry. Set pieces seem to firstly decide which biome to spawn in, and then look for a place to generate within that biome. That's why you, for example, see a lot of set pieces bunched together in the nest biome sometimes, since it's so small. Look for Malbatross spawners in the Swell Ocean. The Lunar Island forms a cut-off circle with the mainland. Look for straight edges and sail out from them. The Lunar Island and Crab King can easily be found with the astral detector. Pearl's Island can easily be found by reading a message in a bottle. Pirate raids and marked sea stacks indicate the Moonquay Island is close. Mini glaciers on the ocean indicate that the Frostjaw's Island is close. The caves generate in the shape of a tree, and you spawn where the leaves would be. The ruins are the roots, the muddy biome, the wilds, and the villages make up the trunk, and the remaining branches are, well, branches. There are 10 or 12 giant tentacles where one leads to the Atrium. Touches in a sub biome of the muddy biome along a path to a branch biome. Many of the cave biomes have a quote-unquote spine structure. To not end up at a dead end, keep going forward along the spine. The random biomes in the caves are almost completely useless, but they can have points of interest. The Lunar Grotto will always be attached to the blue Mushtree forest with the archives behind it. Therefore, no random biomes can spawn behind the blue Mushtree forest. The ruins branches are supposed to generate behind Village 1 that can be found behind a patch of blue mushrooms in the Wilds biome. Beware though of split ruins generation that can invalidate the previous point. There can be villages 2 and 3 that acts as red herrings for the purposes of finding the ruins. Explore the village biomes during the calm phase for safety reasons. The ruins branches are generally at the back of the village, so run through it first and then start looking for them. Look for the sacred branch first, it's the most consistent and safest ruins branch. Use a Thuleside medallion to see the labyrinth on the map. When exploring the labyrinth, make sure to run along the edges to not trigger the spider webs. Don't explore the Atrium unless you want to fight Fuelweaver, since it's dangerous and sparse. Find the Atrium through the Tentapillar in the green Mushtree forest or the Guano biome that looks like this, or by teleporting off the Atrium bridge. Toadstool can spawn at 3 possible locations, 2 of which will have muddy turf and 1 of which will have guano turf. Your best chance at finding him is in the Lobster biome, followed by the muddy biome. More than 1 Toadstool spawner can potentially be in the same biome apart from in the muddy biome. There's a spreadsheet and footage you can verify everything I've said with in the description. Finally, there are 3 funny seeds in the description with crazy ruins generation. Thank you so much for watching, and kudos to you for making it this far. You really make my day if you leave a comment with any questions, thoughts or points you would like to discuss that I missed. I answer every comment. Next video is gonna be a crazy challenge run again, and with that said, enjoy life!